morning. Good morning. Or is it afternoon? Almost afternoon. Hello on our online. We're so grateful you're with us as well. We are really so blessed and grateful to be reigniting our faith and re-energizing our community and really coming back to who we really have come here to be. And so it's a delight to be with you. And thank you, Peter, for your wonderful testimony and vulnerability and your willingness to let us see you in sometimes, life's challenging ways, and let us love you back to who you really have come here to be. And that's a joy to share. So we are moving into the Untethered Soul, but before we do, I want to mention that we've been talking about being in service. And Albert Schweitzer says, I may never know you personally, but I know something essentially true about you, and that is, unless you find a way to love and serve, most likely you will never be truly happy. So here we practice our sacred service as really a devotion to God. That we really see it as an opportunity for you to serve in this community, but to find your way back to God. So we do absolutely see that as an opportunity. So today Francine is going to be, she'll be up in room 201 after the service at 1 o'clock. Training about teaching, ushering and greeting and ambassadoring, but basically creating a welcoming presence. And that's up to not just a select few, but every one of us. Yeah, to create this welcoming presence, because we are welcoming home the divine. Every time someone walks through these doors, that's what we're doing. Welcome home. Welcome back to who you really are. And we hope that this community helps you see that more clearly than when you got here. So that's our work, is to know that service is an act of devotion to God, and as we awaken to our oneness and we carry this message, that the world will awaken. So Unity Worldwide's vision is a world powerfully transformed through the shared spiritual awakening. And that's what we're here for, a shared spiritual awakening. It's not okay that just one of us does it. We're more interested in having each of us have that experience. So we are moving into the Untethered Soul, and we have some amazing facilitators. And Cindy, if you'll stand, Cindy is one, and Thomas is one. And Margie has just gotten the voice of God to say, I'd like to lead one as well. So, and I think Mary Paulson is also going to. So please go to Community Central and sign up for these beautiful beings. Margie's is still forming. We're not sure when that will be, but if you're interested, we'll create it. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you so much for saying yes. And so you can also get your books there. They're $15, or you could go and get it yourself. We're just offering it as a service to you. And then there's the booklet that helps us work through. You could do this through group, which is, in my opinion, the best way of discovering self. I think sometimes my most brilliant self comes out in sharing, like not when I practiced and rehearsed, but when it just flows, when I'm in an environment that is safe and comfortable, and there's a wisdom that gets shared, and all of a sudden we go, wow, something came through me right there. And that comes through each and every one of us. So the small groups are created so that we can find ourselves, our voices, with each other. So join that, the Untethered Soul. So it's a fabulous book. It's about 10 years old, so it's not new, and some of you have read it, but it just really ignited Larry and I when it first came out, and of course Oprah Winfrey got a hold of it, and it really went mainstream. And Michael Singer is the author, and he's really a lovely being, and he's awake. You could tell he's very awake. He's had many wonderful spiritual experiences. And he also has another book on surrendering, which is his account of all of his spiritual awakenings, which is quite fabulous. But this is a journey of awakening, and so it's going to begin by untethering our soul from the ego. That's pretty much what we're untethering. So it's not like we're bound, but there is something going on internally that some and many of us are just not aware of. And that is that there's sort of an internal voice inside of us. So, above all, this is what William Shakespeare says, above all, to thine own self be true. And it must follow as the night does the day. Thou canst not then be false to any man. So, to thine own self be true. Part of this work that we're doing is discovering the truth of our being. And one of those truths from this first slide is, you are not the voice in your mind. You are just the one who hears it. Be aware that you are the one watching the voice talk, and come to know the one who is observing, who is watching. This is the beautiful part. And some of you may be saying, well, I'm not sure what she's talking about. I don't have a voice within. That's the voice we're talking about. Who just goes around narrating everything, right? Internally, it's talking about what it sees, or what it thinks about. Like during Sundays, sometimes we're in the room hearing what's going on, and other times we're at breakfast, or we're at the next shopping experience, or the next conversation that we don't want to have, or remembering we have to go home to some sort of mess or difficult relationship. Whatever it is, the mind loves to leave this now moment. Have you noticed? It's like, wow, be here now, all right? Be here now. Come back, Kimasabi, right? Back. Yeah. Constantly bringing ourselves back to this moment. How many of you have ever driven down the road for a long period of time, arrived at your destination, and don't remember anything about the trip? Yeah. Very frightening, yeah. Very, very frightening. I did that drinking, so that was even more frightening, right? Like, woo! So I have 30 years, don't worry, it doesn't happen anymore. But I remember even after that, that I would still have sort of the moments of blacking out, and that's the egoic mind taking us out of the now moment. It doesn't like the now moment because it can't manipulate it. It really can talk about the stories from the past, loves to reignite those, and just, my gosh, do you know what happened, and then this happened, and that happened, and do you remember when, and she said that, and they said this, and I got upset, and then we create a whole new phenomenon. So that's sort of the mind that we're speaking of, that is not really a rational mind, nor a mind that we want to follow, right? So just the idea that we're not our thoughts, we're not our mind. It's just sort of happening. There is a persona that we all have taken on to sort of navigate this earthly plane. And for in psychology, we sort of need that, this sort of ego that helps us, be present. And but then it goes beyond helpfulness, And so part of this is becoming aware of the voice within. So we're not here to condemn the voice, but remove ourselves from identifying as the voice. Just to notice the difference. Sort of like also noticing that I have life experiences. That's not who I am, but I have life experiences. Like, well, I got divorced, or I lost my job, or I lost my home, or I have 4 kids, or whatever it is. These are just life experiences. They're not who we are. just as though feelings and emotions are not who we are. They're sensations, they're senses in the body. So we're coming to be aware of them and use them how they're to be used. So in the work that I do, I teach compassionate communication and the Q process. We're looking at becoming very aware of self, very aware of how we are in the world. And we can use life experiences to awaken. Rather than, this is against me, we can say, wow, how can I use even this, God, to glorify you? How can I use this life situation to be more of who I've come here to be in this world? Rather than shrink or become a victim or suffer from this life experience, how can I use it to glorify you, to be a greater expression of God? So that's how we want to use this work. This work is the Untethered Soul. We're untethering by becoming aware of who we really are. And we can do that. The first step is just to listen to this voice. The second idea is your thoughts don't define you. They're just an outpost or output of what your consciousness is perceiving. So remember in The Eye of the Storm and some of the other work we did, we have a perception about life. So that is like now, the weather is lovely in your opinion, or the weather is muggy in your opinion, or the weather is perfect, right? We all have an opinion or perception of our external world. But it just is, we're making it up according to our awareness, according to our consciousness. And so that's what we want to become aware of between reality and what we're making up. So I like to play these games all the time. And, as I began to share my life experiences with people, I'll say something about an experience that we had, and they'll look at me sort of odd. I said, did I just make that up? Right? Because we're sort of conditioned, to sort of interpret life to mean what it means to us. So just becoming aware of that. The next time you get triggered or upset or hurt is, here's what happened. He didn't call me back, and I'm making that mean blah, 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 right? So it's very natural, very normal for us to be making it up. So what we want to do is just become aware of what's happening internally. So the Q, we're working on that. And we've got another program called the Empowerment Dynamic. We're also looking at ways that we're in relationship with other people through dramas and rescuing and persecution and blah, blah, blah. But it's just interesting, this dance we do in relationship and how we can project out without being conscious of what's going on for us. So all we want to do is become sort of aware. So here's what we do. This is a part of the book that is sort of fun. That this is sort of what goes on in the mind. So he says, just stop for a moment and see what you've got in your mind to do. He says, I want everyone to like me. This is you speaking now. I want everyone to like me. I don't want anyone to speak badly of me. I want everything I say and do to be acceptable and pleasing to everyone. I don't want anyone to hurt me. I don't want anything to happen that I don't like. And I want everything to happen that I do like. And then you say, yeah. And then you say, okay, mind, figure out how to do that and bring that into reality, even if it takes day and night. And the mind says, I'm on it. And thinks about that all the time. How to keep him, her comfortable. Want to make sure she's comfortable, she doesn't get hurt, and so there's all these projections. So this work is to be playful with self, to not take life so serious, to get and understand that not all, but a lot of the hurt and misunderstandings that happen are within us and not necessarily external, yes? Yes. And wouldn't life be more fun if we knew who and what we were and we just wore this coat of Teflon? Right? Everything just fell off of us, right? Rather than Velcro, right? Right? So that's sort of the prayer. God, let me just wear the Teflon, right? Just let it flow off of me, because that's not who I am. The world is constantly wanting us to prove ourselves. Who do you say that you are? Even in this situation? Yes? Yes. Even in whatever challenges, God is always asking us, please remember who you are. You are a child of God, worthy of amazing, miraculous experiences here on earth. There is so much love and strength and courage in you. Do not let external experiences tarnish you, diminish you in any way. You have the power of the infinite and almighty. That's what we want to tap into, yes? So we want to untether from the egoic sense of self that is separate and afraid and alone and doesn't belong, and, untether from this voice that keeps us separate from God. So one of the things I know is that the way we talk to ourselves about our lives is our story. And our story has a great deal to do with what shows up in our everyday experience. Yes? So we are an expression of who we believe that we are by what we tell others. Yes? So we want to be careful what experiences we identify as. We want to be mindful of who we're showing up as. And our thoughts create these filters which create our life experience. And if we think that we are one who suffers, then we are the sufferer. And we filter all of our experience through what happens, and we create a viewpoint that I am the one who suffers. And therefore, we begin to look at all of the places in our life that we have suffered. And so the ego is nothing more than a thought of being separate from God, edging God out, right? E-G-O, edging God out. It thinks it knows everything. If you met those people, they know everything, right? Just ask them. They have an answer for everything. But this practice is being so mindful and emptying the mind, not of wisdom, but of holding on to thought forms, holding on to the way it's supposed to be. Because if life doesn't show up as you anticipated or the way it's supposed to be, and we are attached to that outcome, that is where the separation comes. So part of this life is living in the flow of allowing life to flow through us, even in those sticky places, even when it shows up in ways we didn't want. And being willing to sort of flow with the river. So there's this story of God in a bowl. And the story is there was a teacher who was explaining to his disciples, God and the soul are one and the same. Just as God exists within himself, he exists within all of us, and in the same measure. And so one of the disciples got up and said, Teacher, God is so great. He has so much power. Infinite worlds exist within him. How can we all be part of God? So the teacher replied, well, take my water bowl to the Yamani River and fill it with water. So the disciple went, and a few minutes later brought back the bowl full of water from the river. The teacher looked at the bowl and he said, I told you to get the water from the Yamani River. This cannot be the water from there. Oh, yes, teacher, said the disciple. This is definitely the water from the Yamani River. But there are fish in the river. There are no fish in this water. There are turtles in that river, and there are no turtles in this water. There are cows standing in that river, and there are no cows in this river. And there are bathers, and there are no bathers in this water. So how can this be the water from the Yamani River? So go and let the water of the Yamani River, take it back. And the disciple said, but this is just a small amount. It's not the whole river. How can it contain all those things? He says, what you say is true. So take the water and pour it back into the river. So the disciple went and poured the water back and returns to the master. And now, do not all those things exist in that water now? Said the teacher. The individual soul is like the water in the bowl. It is one with God, but when it separates itself from its source, it only exists in limitation. And therefore, it seems to be different than its source. When you poured the water from the bowl back into the river, that water once again contained the fish and the turtles and the cows and the bathers. In the same way, when you see your own inner self through the heart, you will realize that you are that. And you pervade everywhere, just like God. And you will also be filled with all of God's powers. Yes? Yes. So this is us remembering that when we separate from God, we have such limitation because we are counting on our little selves. Remembering, I of myself cannot do this. It is the Christ within who does this work. When we show up as the Christ or as surrendered the will, the egoic will, to a greater presence, then that presence has room and space to use us as a vehicle on earth, yes? But when we are so full of ourselves, right, there's no room for God. There's no space. Just one more thought about self. How much I know, right? How much I know. So surrendering to this beautiful presence is what we get to do in this book together. That we get to untether the soul. We get to release ourselves from this separate sense of self. That we're doing this all on our own. And the liberation comes with such joy to say, what was I thinking? Right? Well, I was thinking that I was this, perfect little self, capital, small s self. And that I needed to learn all these things, and I had to do it this way, and I had to do it that way, and have enough degrees, and, have enough money, and have enough homes, and, I kept using external sources to define who and what I am, which could never bring us happiness. That is an endless desire, yes? Of needing to more and more and more and more. And this authentic sacred self is sufficient and enough right here and now. So let's have an experience of this awareness that we're talking about. So if you'll just join me, closing the outer eye, taking that beautiful breath, Just becoming aware. Allowing yourself to just be held in the arms of God. We're just taking that holy breath and just asking self, who am I? And just listening deeply. Who am I? And where do these answers come from? Who is this somebody else? Who is the one who heard the answer? Who is the one right now who is aware and has the capacity to watch everything that's going on? Can you know yourself as awareness? Can you drop below the surface mind to a place of being aware? In this place, you are aware of being aware. You are the witness of everything that is coming and going, all of the sounds, all of the sensations, all of the thoughts. The doorway to the divine. This is the doorway to love, to peace, to deep abiding wisdom. There is an evolutionary impulse that is working at the level of you. And right now, that is seeking to know itself through you. And that is consciousness, trying to become conscious of itself. And that is you, waking up. You are not the voice in your head. You are divine. You are loved. You are the strength of God. You are the presence of God. And you belong to this world, to this presence. You are here to serve. And so we thank you, beloved presence, for this amazing ministry, for this moment in time in which we can have an experience of our own awareness, seeking to see itself, sometimes for the first time. We are blessed and grateful for these unity teachings, for this spiritual community that supports our spiritual growth and supports each of us in transforming our life so that we can make a positive difference in the world. We are blessed and grateful and eager to be the one of expressing you here on earth. And so it is. Amen. Great. Thank you, God. Thank you very much.